This is Dan, and this is the Napkin Academy. And I got to tell you, I am very much looking forward to our session today, because what we're going to do is we're going to start to review my new book, Show and Tell. And really, I think that the simple idea I want to share with you today is I believe that we need a simple, visual, basic book on presentations. Now, in reality, for any of us that have done any presentations or interested in books, we know that there are a tremendous number of books out there, some really excellent ones about making presentations. And some of these are by good friends of mine. So if anybody's familiar with Slideology and Resonate by Nancy Duarte, a couple of magnificent books. Nancy also recently wrote a book for the Harvard Business Review. Gar Reynolds, another friend of mine, wrote Presentation Zen, Presentation Zen Design. Fellow named Carmine Gallo, another Bay Area fellow who I've gotten to know pretty well, wrote The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. And then a fellow up in Seattle, Lee Lefevre, great book, just came out recently called The Art of Explanation. So as wonderful as these books are, I still thought that there would be room for another one. And the reason is this. Of all the great books that there are, I couldn't find the one that talked about the most basic elements of presentations in a really visual way. So how do you go about building a good deck? And when we talk about a deck is really our PowerPoint or our Keynote set of slides that are the underlying basis of our presentation. That's what we call a deck. So how do you build a good one? How do you really just tell a great story? Because let's face it, the best presentations are going to be stories. How do you deal with fear? Let's admit it. And in fact, one of the things we're going to talk about as we look at some of our presentation disasters later on this call is a lot of us do face some fear. We all have stage fright when it's time to get out in front of a big group of people, and there we are kind of standing there on the stage. So how do you deal with that? And then, of course, really near and dear to my heart is, let's say we're making a great presentation and we really want to use pictures. How would we do that? So I couldn't find all of these in one book. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and do one on my own. I talked to my publisher, and they were really behind the idea. And so came up with a set of 4 sample titles. Originally, we were thinking we might call the book Natural Born Presenters. We might possibly call it The Presenter's Journey. We might call it The Magic Show. And we might call it Show and Tell. So what I actually did is, using Google Analytics and Google AdWords, I actually created simple little ads online for all 4 of these titles, all based on the same keywords. And overwhelmingly, using our Google Analytics open source data collection, Show and Tell came back as far and away the favorite title. And so that's going to be the title of the book. The book is going to look something like this: Show and Tell, How Regular People Make Extraordinary Presentations. I'm going to walk you through some of the basic introductory parts of the book to kind of give you an overview of one of what I think is really the critical issues about making great presentations visually that tends not to get talked about very much. And so what I'm actually going to do now is walk you through the work in progress. I'm in the process of writing the book now, and what I want to do over the next several sessions with you all is run sections by you, get your feedback. If you want to send me an email with what you think, or if you want to post something onto the showcase, by all means. Or if you have a question now, I'll try to answer it as well. So here's really the idea. Show and tell how regular people make extraordinary presentations. How do we go from perhaps being a little bit timid, hiding behind a podium, to standing right on top of it and sharing with great confidence and lots of pictures? And I think that there are really 3 essential rules to how to make an extraordinary presentation. The first one is tell the truth. The second one is tell that truth with a story. And the third one is tell that story with pictures. So those become the 3 basic rules of show and tell. Starting with the truth, sadly, the truth is this: most presentations that we make are just not very good. They just kind of lie flat and our audience isn't particularly excited, which I find kind of weird, because you'd think that anytime one of us is sharing an idea with someone else, it should always be pretty remarkable. So what the book is about is how to bend this line from a pretty so-so presentation to how to make a pretty extraordinary presentation, and do that with just a set of simple steps. I do believe that as presenters, our goal is pretty simple, simply helping others see what we see. To do this, I think we do a handful of simple things. We entertain sometimes. We do try to persuade people. We sometimes educate people. We certainly want to motivate people. But beyond anything else, what we ultimately want to do is help our audience change in some way. Why else are we making a presentation unless we think that our audience is going to change? They're going to learn something. They're going to change an attitude. Perhaps they'll change their understanding. You know, that sounds pretty simple. This is us. This is our idea. Here's our great presentation. We share it. Everybody loves our idea just like we do. Everything's wonderful. And we've got some change. Trouble is, it should be easy, but for some reason it's not. Making one of these great presentations just doesn't seem to be that easy to do. And here's really the question that I have. If presenting should be so easy, why is it so hard? And I think that the real answer is we simply forget how to show and tell. And so what this essence of my book, Show and Tell, is about is what I call the 3 laws of show and tell. And they go like this. The first one says, if we lead with the truth, the heart will follow. Number 2 says, if we lead with the story, understanding will follow. And the third one says, if we lead with the eye, the mind will follow. 3 simple laws of show and tell. Tell the truth, tell it with a story, tell that story with pictures. What I want to share with you for the next 10 minutes or so this morning is just rule number 1. Tell the truth. I really do believe that if we lead with the truth, the heart will follow, both our own and that of our audience. And if we really want people to follow us and believe what we're talking about, all we need to do is tell the truth. I found a couple of great quotes from people who I very much respect, some of the great writers of all time. Here's from Stephen King talking about the truth. He said, "It was one of the best speeches I ever heard because it was the truth rather than horse stuff." Another favorite writer, Mark Twain, most brilliant comment ever. "If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything." And I'll tell you, for those of us that are frequent presenters, maybe getting on to a point in life where our memory isn't what it once was, he's absolutely right. You just tell the truth, you don't have to remember a dang thing. So what is an extraordinary presentation? It's one that changes people. And what makes people change? Really? The truth does. What I mean by that is a couple of things. Number 1, there's no faster way to establish trust with our audience than just to tell them the truth. So for example, I caught a fish, it was that big. Pretty funny, isn't it? There's no faster way to lose our audience than to tell them a lie. I caught this big old nasty shark. No, you didn't. I don't think I'm going to listen to you anymore. I think there's another aspect here that I'm going to add into the book because I realize as I go through this it's missing, which is if we tell the truth, it's automatically going to be something that we are passionate about. And the number 1 way to connect with the audience is to have some passion. So by telling the truth, finding the thing that is true enough to us, we are automatically going to connect with the audience, whether they believe our truth or not, for the simple reason that we will be passionate about it. But all that said, there is more than one kind of truth. I think we have truths of the head, things we think about. I think this is true. We have truths of the heart, things that we know to be true in our heart, things that we fundamentally believe. And then we have truths of data. The facts say it. So our data might say, the facts tell me this is true. Our head might say, I think this is true. And our heart says, I believe this to be true. Factual truth, intellectual truth, and emotional truth. And guess what? They're not always in alignment, are they? All 3 of these truths live at us all the time. An example I thought of is this famous sort of aphorism. The glass is half full, or is the glass half empty? Well, the facts, the data, might tell us that, within this glass, measurable item, the volume of oxygen is 2 cubic inches. And they might tell us that the volume of H2O water is also 2 cubic inches. So the facts tell us that the 2 are equal. Okay, that's a factual point. Now our head knows, intellectually says, well, a half full glass is a sign of hope, but a half empty glass can be a sign of despair. Our head knows that. But what does our heart believe when we look at that glass? I choose, say, that glass is half full. That is what I believe. Now, which one of these truths is correct? Well, they all are, aren't they? But which one makes a better presentation? And the simple answer there is, well, it depends. Here's why. Not all three of these truths are equal. In ourselves, there's a kind of a pyramid. At the bottom, we have lots and lots of data points, and they're all true. And out of those data points, we build a model in our mind of something that we're going to call knowledge, and that's true too. And then somehow between that knowledge and that data and something that we feel, we have in our heart something else that we believe to be absolutely true. And in terms of attention, and this is critical for any one of us that needs to try to convince someone of somebody or share something in a presentation, things we believe always outrank the things that we know, and both outrank the facts. Now, this is just a matter of the human condition. The things that we feel in our heart outweigh the things that we know in our head, which outweigh the things that we've been taught are factual. It's just how we operate as people. And I think from a presentation perspective, there's an interesting set of thoughts we can take from this. A good presentation shares new data. It works at this level. Here's some new facts. Here's some new insights. A great presentation changes what we believe we know. But a truly extraordinary presentation changes what we absolutely believe. So as a presenter, I think the first question we need to ask ourselves is this. For this topic that I'm going to share, for this audience that I'm going to share it with, and frankly, for myself, which truth should I tell? The truth of the data? The truth of my heart? The truth of my head? All of them? It's an interesting question. And I think that for presenters there is a pretty simple way to answer it. I represent it with these three buckets. Why? I'll show you. All presentations, regardless of whether they are an executive summary, a hearing in a court of law, a wedding toast, an educational lecture, all presentations are composed of the same three elements. Us. This is me. I'm the one giving the talk. My idea. Here's the thing that I'm going to talk about. And my audience. These are the people with whom I'm going to share this idea. Every presentation is exactly these same elements delivered just like that with feedback that comes back in this direction. That's all a presentation is. So I'm thinking that in order to help us map out which truth to tell, how do we get the underlying structure of our presentation, our first job is to take three buckets. Say one of these buckets represents everything I think about my idea. One of these buckets represents everything I think about myself as it relates to this idea. And one of these buckets represents everything I think I know about my audience, their relationship to me, and their relationship to the idea. Now, if that sounds complicated, I don't mean it to, because it's a simple idea. The thought is, let's make a vat, and we could do this with post-it notes, we could do this with software programs, we could do it on a whiteboard, however we want. Let's take all the things we think about our idea and throw them into this bucket. Let's take all the things that are relevant to us and this idea and throw them in this bucket. And let's take all the things that we think we know about our audience and throw them in this bucket. So just by virtue of a quick example, imagine that we were going to do a pitch. We're a software development company and we want to pitch to a venture capital group our new social media application. So in terms of our idea, it might have something to do with, hey, what if we could make Twitter enabled for shopping? And we could have a family mode, and we could have a friends-only mode, and we could do shared online purchasing. Really imagine being able to buy things through Twitter. You could buy anything within the app. So those are all aspects of my idea. Now, when I present that idea to the VC, who do I want to be? Am I an expert? Well, yeah, but I'm still humble. I need their money, but I don't want to seem like I'm desperate, so I really want to know that I've got some other options, and I want to convey my passion about this product. I really love it. And what are some things that I can think about this VC audience, these venture capital people that I'm going to meet? Well, they're certainly seasoned investors, so I need to talk to them as if they're experts. They've seen it all, that's for sure. But at the same time, they probably need a new win in their organization. Hey, this is the same group that backed Twitter, so they're likely to want to back my idea. And I'm guessing demographically, they're probably in their late 30s to 40s, have a fair amount of money, pretty insightful folks. So now what I've started to do is already think through. The truth that I'm going to tell is going to emerge from a combination of these three buckets. Again, bucket number one, I put in there things I think about my idea. What do I believe? What is my message? What is my concept? What is my product? What is my lesson? What is my discovery? And I put it this way, if I had all the freedom in the world to say exactly what I want about this thing, exactly what would I really want to say? Bucket number two, the one about myself. Who am I really as I talk about this idea? Am I someone who's quiet? Am I someone who's funny? Am I serious? Am I loud? This isn't about pandering. This is about understanding who am I when it relates to my idea. Who do I most want to be? Who do I want to project that I am as I talk about this idea? Those are my thoughts for bucket number two. And my thoughts for bucket number three are about my audience. Who are the people on the other side of my idea? Here's what I'm going to be showing them. What are they likely to think about that? And most importantly, what I really want to think about again is that idea of change. So, most important about this audience, as I share my idea with them, what is the change that I would most like to see take place in them? If these are a bunch of venture capital people, the change I'd like to see of them is them going from questioning my product to them saying, "We love your product, here's some money." If I was talking to a bunch of students, the change I might like to see is they don't know much about this particular topic to now they know a lot about this particular topic. What is the change I want to see in my audience? Now, the reason I think that this is important, just talking about the truth, why I took the time to do it, is it's the underlying starting premise of this book, Show and Tell. We're going to talk about the others, how to tell a story and how to tell that story with pictures, but they don't mean anything unless we really understand how to plan for the truth that we're going to share. I think planning for the truth really allows us to do a few things. Pull together the pieces of our idea in a meaningful way, begin to have confidence in ourselves because we know who we are, and get to know our audience before we even begin the presentation. And I think with those three buckets beginning to fill up, we've got something about our idea, we've got some knowledge about our audience, and we've got increasing knowledge about ourselves. It's time for us to go ahead and craft our story. And that's what we're going to say for the next time we meet. So what I want to do now is we're going to open up some of the lines. Last time we had a session, I gave you a homework assignment, and I was kind of mercenary in the way I did it. I wanted to hear from you what were some of your worst presentation experiences, your worst, your scariest, most embarrassing, most disastrous, and then draw a little picture illustrating what happened. And we had a number of people do it, and some of you have volunteered to share your stories, and I see Sanjay, you're on the line, so fantastic. So what I'd like to do is start out with Jocelyn sharing a little bit of a story about technical meltdown. Then we're going to shift over to Sanjay, who's in Mumbai. He's going to talk about a presentation that's coming up that's a little bit scary. John's going to share with us a situation that happened, I think, back in London. And James was on backup. James, we're probably not going to have time to have you share your story, but I'm going to encourage everyone to take a look at it on the showcase because it is absolutely hilarious and very real. So let's do this. Jocelyn, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me, Dan?
Very well, Jocelyn. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Okay, Jocelyn, so what I'm going to do is scroll down to your picture, and looks like a good one. Why don't you walk us quickly through what the disaster was?
Okay, so I had been invited to be a guest speaker. A colleague of mine was running sort of a mini business school, and I'm a brand strategist, so she asked me to come in and take my visual presenting skills and my brand strategy and do a module for her. And so I was thrilled because I was going to get to be in front of a bunch of potentially ideal clients. So the presentation was crafted pretty well. We had done everything we needed to do, like looked at drafts of the presentation. I had a run through with the technology, so everything looked great. We had 16 participants from 5 different countries. The call was scheduled to start at 3 p.m., so at 2:30 I sat down, got my deck all ready, did my technology check, and I didn't have a Wi-Fi signal. So I just went through like the normal troubleshooting, then went downstairs and realized the router was out, and I started sweating. So I called Comcast, and I got the message that said, due to heavy call volume, we can't help you, but we note that in your area there's a technology outage and you'll be back online at 9 p.m. So
Only 6 hours late, right?
right.
Yeah.
And there was no other option. I couldn't get out a flip chart because everybody was all over the place. So continued to sweat a little bit, called the host and told her what was going on, and said, I think I can figure something out. I'll get back with you. And so I found out that I could use my cell phone as a hotspot. So I didn't even care about overages or whatever. So I got the hotspot going, got the laptop up. With 7 minutes to spare, I called her and said, I'm online, I'm ready to go. So I was able to sign on to the webinar, and we got started. And we kind of explained to everybody what was going on, that there might be some issues, until I, get through the initial nerves and get rolling in the presentation, start to feel good about the flow of everything, and then I get dropped off the call. And so I had to log back in, and that happened 3 times. So luckily it was a very understanding audience, and they were able to kind of laugh and keep up with me when I popped back in. So
what a nightmare.
It was pretty horrible.
Well, in the end, did it work out all right? Meaning, did some of these people come around as potential clients still, or how does it?
I had two that signed up, and I've ended up working with. But for me as a brand strategist, I know that everything you do is a representation of your brand. So I thought, here I am looking like a complete dingbat. I can't even get the internet to work. Why would you trust me to lead you through a brand strategy process?
Jocelyn, what I'm thinking too is it was pretty good thinking on your part in 7 minutes to go to realize, wait a minute, I could use my mobile phone as a hotspot. That under pressure, that's grace under pressure, isn't it? Figuring out what you can do.
Well, that's actually become part of my branding, is that strategic planning and brand strategy planning can be very hectic and chaotic, but I'm kind of the calm one that is able to sit there and figure things out while everything's going nuts around you. So that presentation actually helped with my branding.
It probably did. Isn't that funny? Some of the how does it go? The worst decisions, the worst catastrophes become the best stories. So
yes,
there we have it. Jocelyn, wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. And I think now we're going to move on to Sanjay. Sanjay, I'm turning on your phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Sanjay, I'm going to blow up your picture here. Now, I understand that your disaster is one that's still in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks away. In the middle of a monthly presentation to a client where we're doing one kind of activity, which is online reputation management. We suddenly got thrown up with an RFP, which deals with 5 different departments within the organization. So where we're talking of customer care online via social media, we're now asked to pitch to handle online PR, social media marketing, crisis management, content, and so on. And we've got a really long list of requirements from them, like 80 plus things. And so we've got a deck ready, kind of, and I was like, there are 5 different departments. And, even if we run through one department's requirement, at that time the others are going to be bored.
Right.
And it's just so many things to present. And that's kind of challenging. So you need to present on a concept level, and at the same time showcase actual examples of what we're going to do. So
Sanjay, how you're what, you're 2 weeks away, yes?
Yeah, less than 2 weeks away.
Okay, so what is your plan for how you're going to address this? Because you've got too much to show, and you've got this issue of boredom. So
you know what? I'm actually thinking in terms of the actual specifics, like, for example, okay, we need so many likes on Facebook, and we need so many people who visit our site, and blah, blah, blah. We got to take that offline in an actual document, address their requirements, and give an example, and that's it. And then move on to the next, do the same, because otherwise it's just way too much. At least that's what in my head right now. And so,
Could I make another suggestion? Something that I've seen work quite effectively. You've got the 5 different groups. What would happen if you asked the leader or the spokesperson for each group to summarize their example or their critical issue into a single image?
I know what you're trying to get at. Put everything in one picture is kind of a challenge. So I was just thinking, no way I can address all of that. Let me just take what I think are the core issues in each of these departments, or what they want to get done, and address that.
Well, Sanjay, best of luck with this. You definitely face a challenge that I think many of us have been in. How do I fit too much into the amount of time I have? It sounds like your solution of some kind of a document that contains most of the details that works as a complement to the formal presentation is probably a good way to go. Sanjay, do this if you would. Continue to update us through the showcase with how this one goes. We'll be watching, and I would like to see how you solve this one, okay?
I will. Thank you.
Sanjay, thanks very much. We'll talk to you next time.
Sure.
And next up, John. Can you hear me okay?
Good morning, Dan. Yes.
Hi, good morning, John. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
John, take us through your presentation nightmare.
Certainly. Well, this is probably something many of us have experienced as presenters. This is more about the emotional trajectory of the presenter rather than the presentation itself. So you can see
It's always that. It's always that.
And also a good deal of self-reflection before, during, and after the presentation. But we start off setting expectations. I was in San Francisco making a presentation, flying to London for an adult education conference, probably a couple of hundred people there. I was the principal presenter, and a lot of work had gone into the presentations. It was not just one evening, it was going to be for a week. And so I did the rehearsal later that evening. Everything worked fine. Lights, projector, action, check, check, check. Get up next morning, 8 o'clock, and I switch on the power, and there's no power. And so at that point, the emotional trajectory from being calm and in control, fear and panic does set in. And it sets in for a couple of reasons. It personally, one has a self-image of being a presenter and being able to, as I think Jocelyn said, being in control and being professional. But the other aspect is you think about the group and you say, well, these people have come a long way. They're expecting something, at least a performance, and what can I show them except a blank screen? And then at that point, I started, going all around the conference center, and eventually, quite by chance, I found that it had been unplugged.
Oh gosh!
So you can see the screen is way in the distance. I'm at the other end of the hall. Put the plug together, and a few minutes later, I'm not presenting, and everything is fine. So that's the story. I think the important point, and I'll just summarize it by saying that there's 3 principles I like to follow in any presentation: is to be prepared and to be prudent in what I say, but of course the most important one is to be present. And I think that's what I had to learn, is one has to be present in these circumstances when one is relying on technology. At the end, it really is about you as a presenter and how you relate to the audience.
Exactly right. Well, I think that those are all incredibly good principles. And what's remarkable is whether it's Jocelyn's story, whether it's your story, or one that I had shared myself, technology, although it is a wonderful friend to us, can also be one of our greatest concerns. And John, thank you very much. I want to close with another story. This was my own nightmare situation, and this is one that revolves around technology as well. And I thought that what I would do as I was working on this is, for some reason, I was inspired to go ahead and put my story into rhyme. It's not something I normally do when doing a presentation, but I thought I would share this with you. So this I call an ode to the power of pictures, or the day that death cheated PowerPoint. Goes like this. I arrived at my client all prepared for the show, 200 plus slides done and ready to go. The venue was awesome, a top-end lecture hall. Expectations were high, a feeling shared by us all. So who was this group, you might very well ask, paying me highly for this training-based task? Engineers is your answers. Engineers with agendas, builders of bridges and jet engines and blenders. They wanted to learn how to think with their eyes, for they'd heard that I spoke of a visual prize. It would be a long day, 8 hours of training, but we knew we'd learn lots with some effort of straining. Then the session that morning dawned unseasonably hot. Far too hot, it turned out, for the power was shot. That's right, I won't hide it, it's the God's honest truth. All lines badly melted were attached to the roof. Think with me, dear presenters, on stepping into that hall. Would you not be panicked with no power at all? Take a breath and a chill pill, I said to myself. Perhaps drawings alone had an adequate wealth to get all thoughts across in a memorable way, so that's what we did for the rest of the day. We drew maps and drew portraits, drew timelines and charts. We explained complex processes right down to their parts. Visual thinkers rejoice, 'cause we're lucky and quick, for turning disaster to learning is no easy trick. So sketchers remember why we're so hard to beat, 'cause with pens in our hands, we keep butts glued to seats. And with that, I want to thank you all. Next time when we talk, I would like to take you a little bit through the process of writing a book. This will be my 4th one, and I think some of you might be interested in how does one go about actually mechanically writing a book. So we'll talk about that, and item number 1 is you have to come up with an idea. And it seems to me that the very best idea coming up with the book is to try to imagine the book that you'd most like to read but can't find. So imagine a book you'd love to stumble upon one day but have never actually seen. I'd like you to draw a quick visual equation of the subject of the book. If we were to simplify it all down to one simple picture, what would that picture be that would describe the essence of that book?
Hey, thank you all for another great lesson. This is Dan signing off from the Napkin Academy, but don't go away. Now on our new platform, you can still submit your homework. Debbie, our community manager, is going to join you right now to show you exactly how to do that, and I really encourage you, do your homework. Okay, take it away, Debbie. See you soon.
We hope you enjoyed this Napkin Academy classic video. We've made it easier than ever to share your homework. After you've completed your homework and have a JPEG or PNG file saved on your computer, come back to this course. Once you're back here, scroll to the bottom of the screen, and in the comments box, you can add a comment. I'm just going to call this one My Homework. You can also add images by clicking on the Insert Edit Image button here. In the source box, click on the file. In the Images window, click on Upload, and then click on Add Files. This is going to take you to your computer where you can search for your images. I'm just going to search for mine in Pictures, and I'm going to choose this image here. You can also add multiple images here. Click Upload. After the upload is complete, click Close. Then scroll down, and you'll see that the last image is here, and it's checked. This is the one we just uploaded. Click Insert. I suggest in the Dimensions box you change the maximum to 1200 pixels and leave the Constrained Proportions box checked. You can also add an image description here if you'd like. Click OK. You'll see that your image has been added to your comment. And now the last step, the most important one, make sure that you click the green comment button here to upload your homework to the Napkin Academy. We hope to see your homework soon.